The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, we are going to call to order the Architectural Board of Review for June 1st of 2020, and we're going to start with a roll call.
Yes, thank you. This is Mary. I will take roll call. We have Chair Moore,
Present.
Vice Chair Six,
Here.
Board Member Black,
Here.
Board Member Cunningham,
Here.
Board Member Olson,
Here.
Board Member Whalen,
Here.
and Board Member Watkins is absent.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to general business and we will open public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak?
Mr. Chair, I do not see anyone who wishes to raise their hand at this time, so I will turn it back over to you.
We have not received any written comment as well.
That's right. Okay, so if there is no one who wishes to speak, we will close public comment and move on to approval of the minutes for May 18th. Does anyone have any?
So moved with discussion.
Okay, we have a first from Richard. Discussion.
I'll second the motion.
Sounds like Bob was second. And under discussion?
Yes, if we go to page 6 of 6.
Okay.
So under my comments on this particular project, what is it? 200 Helena Avenue. I'd like to change my comments after the words, but he would like input from the Historic Landmarks Commission. I would like to say he would like to be informed of the process to get comments from the Historic Landmarks Commission. I wasn't ready to go to landmarks right away. I just wanted to know what the process would be. So Mary, did you get that?
Yes.
So it would read, he would like to be informed of the process to get comments from.
Okay.
And then on that same comment, just to clarify, the last sentence, he would like the applicant to consider making the stairway exit out to the roof instead of just out. So the whole sentence would, he would like the applicant to consider making the stairway exit out to the roof inboard of the perimeter so that the roof can be sloped down.
Okay.
Those are my comments.
Mr. Chair,
Okay, yes.
may I just ask all the board members, just a reminder to, when you're speaking, to please also turn on your webcams. I think it'll help with when there's a motion to second something, or just so we can identify who's speaking. Just a reminder, thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. So, yes, Mr. Whalen.
Yes, I'd like to propose a change on that same page as board member 6, number 5. It lists a comment of mine. The last sentence, the designers have done a good job of extracting materials from the funk zone and incorporating into the project. However, the forms and massing of the funk zone are not reflected in the massing of this project.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
Are there any additional edits or comments? Okay, does the maker of the motion accept those two changes?
Yes.
Okay, and the seconder?
Yes.
Okay. So why don't we get great. Why don't we get everybody, everybody up, everybody on screen, and let's do our roll call vote.
All right, this is Mary. I will take the roll call vote. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
Okay, we'll move on now to the consent calendar. Approval of consent calendar minutes for May 26th.
All right, Mr. Chair, if I could have those pulled up. Perfect. Thank you, Timmy. Sorry, my cat's in the way. You've got to move. All right. Item A, 2520, he's back. Okay, I'll hold you. 2520 Bass Street received approval of its review after final with comment. Item B, 330 South Canada Street was given final approval with comments. Item C, 29 South Milpas was given project design and final approval with comment. And I believe that was the end of the agenda.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion for approval?
I move we accept as presented.
Okay. First by Mr. Olson,
Second.
second by Mr. Black. Any discussion? No? Okay, let's have a roll call vote.
Okay, this is
Matthew, you may
Mary.
have to turn off your camera so we can have all 6 of us. Sorry.
Okay,
There
I'll
we
take
go.
the roll call. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay. Great. Thank you. And now moving on to June 1st.
Mr. Chair, we did not have consent today. It was canceled.
Mr. Chair, did you hear that? It was canceled?
Mr. Chair?
I can't
You're on.
tell if, all right.
Speaking.
I think, Mr. Chair, you might have frozen for a moment or we lost audio. Could you just test it?
Okay.
There we go.
How about now? Okay,
That sounds
I'm back.
good. Great.
Okay. So I may have missed everything that just happened.
Yeah, so we did not have consent this morning. It was canceled due to a lack of items.
Okay, great.
And then, sorry,
So then we'll move on to announcements.
Yes, Mr. Chair, staff has 2 announcements today. Item 5, 721 Cliff Drive was postponed for 2 weeks at the applicant's request. Just wanted to give you an update on Mr. Watkins. He's been unable to attend recent meetings for personal reasons. He is still on the board, and we will keep you updated on his ability. When we learn that he's going to be rejoining us, we'll let the board know. We'll send out an email, but as of yet, we have not had that update.
Okay, well, we hope he's doing okay. Any other agenda items or appeals that need to be discussed? No?
I have a
Okay,
question
any
of
sub-
staff.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a question of staff,
Yes.
if this is the right time for that.
Yeah, this is the right time.
Okay, so I would like to understand the process, the future process for the selecting of the design standards. I know that we're expected to have our comments in by the 6th of June, but
Mhm.
I don't know what happens after that, and I'd like to understand where it goes next and if we're going to get to see it again. So I'd like some more details on that process.
Perfect. I can give you some details. I don't have all of them. I know that in the month of June, the working group has been called for, I believe, 2 meetings to discuss all of the changes that were suggested by the boards, as well as the public. So we will go through those and see which we can reasonably accommodate. We are limited in our scope and also limited by state law. So staff and the working group will take a critical eye to all feedback we receive and incorporate everything that we possibly can that we feel reasonably meets the goal of this limited scope of work. We also understand that there is a desire with the way that the state is going for a more comprehensive citywide approach to these types of objective design standards. And so we appreciate feedback you have regarding that as we move forward, because we do anticipate that being a future work effort. But yeah, so as far as whether or not it comes back to you, I could talk to Rosie Dicey about that. I know that there was some back and forth on whether or not that would happen, and we would happily accommodate that if we can. Aside from that, it will go before, I believe, Planning Commission and then City Council. Actually, I don't believe it goes in front of Planning Commission. It will go to City Council for adoption. So this is just sort of the beginning of rolling out the public review process. But once we receive your suggestions, we will go forward in June to review them, and then the future is sort of up in the air whether or not it will come back to you.
So then perhaps this is the time to ask the second question, because we may not see them again. So the way I read this is that if a developer or applicant chooses to go the streamlined version with a multi-unit residential development, he must use these guidelines.
So if they choose to go through the streamlined process, yes, these are the guidelines that they will need to meet. If they do not meet these and they choose and they decide that is cumbersome or not within their wishes to adhere to these streamlined objective design standards, then they will be put on the board's agenda for review. So it doesn't mean that if they don't meet them, they don't get to do what they want to do. It just means if they deviate from them, then ABR and HLC will have full discretion of their review.
So it seems to me that most applicants will choose the streamlined version, and therefore there aren't any alternatives to that group of applicants and projects other than to design and build a project under these guidelines, which would mean to me that there would be no chance of any variance of any kind of architecture, or what I suspect will be a multitude of applications.
Right. So I would like to, I apologize, I may have misspoke when I said, yes, they can go through the streamline if they wish. There are certain criteria for affordability that need to be met. It's about 50% of the units are required to be affordable, and they are required to pay, I forget what the proper term is, but I believe it's some sort of market rate labor costs. So it's not, you'd have to, I believe it's somewhere in the range of $60 an hour or something like that. So that isn't in, we imagine these, and they also cannot be developed on sites that already currently have rental properties, residential rental properties. So we don't anticipate seeing a lot of these projects for the time being. There is a lot of legislature that's moving at an incredibly rapid pace to encourage as much housing as possible and bypass the design review process. This is by no means something that was led by staff. It is something we are reacting to from the state, we appreciate the work that the boards put in, and we just did a study of our workflow, and the feedback we got from the community members is they love the end result of the process. So you guys are doing a wonderful job, and this is in no means meant to take away from the work that you do. It really is just responding to SB 35, which has a very specific set of criteria that applicants need to meet before they can use the streamlined process. And I'm happy to answer more of these questions. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, let me step in here. So, Mr. Olson, I was on the work group. I was part of that. Mr. Wittosh was as well before he stepped away from the board, and we had several HLC members as well as planning commission members and planning staff on there. So this was vetted, and we grappled with the same questions that you have, and this is the best that we can come up with under the time constraints and the budget constraints that the city has, I believe. And there is the intent of continuing to revisit that document and making sure that it can be applicable to other areas within the city that may not be in the El Pueblo Viejo style. Sorry, Matthew, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to avoid this going any further. I was happy to answer that one question thoroughly, but this has not been agendized, and we don't want to get off topic. So as I said, I'd be happy to answer any further questions independently. If you'd like to ask me questions, I can give you a call and we can talk over the phone, not through email. And I'm happy to go through any concerns that you may have and relay them to the rest of the working group when the time comes.
We need to move on.
I'm sorry, I have one question for process. Might not can be answered now, but we have a final review of, and part of our final review today on a particular project is conformancy with the PDA, and how in this process usually we are able to roll out the preliminary approved set and put the elevation side by side with the final and make sure that everything is A-okay. I don't think it's a problem with this particular agenda item today, but if we have others that are more difficult, how do we do that in this in the Zoom meeting?
Yes, so we can discuss that when the project comes up, because it is about a specific project on an agenda today. But to answer your question, we do have those old plans available on the city's website in the archived city drawings, architectural drawings, because this project was required to submit electronic copies, if I believe I'm correct. I'll have to check on that. I'll see if we have them available. If not, we will do our best in the future. If it's before October 1st, actually, of last year, I don't believe we're able to do it virtually.
So it would be our obligation to review and compare before the meeting and not during the meeting.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just a limitation that we have right now. Before October 1st of last year, we did not require electronic submittals of plans to be posted on our website, and this was in July of last year, so I don't believe we have it. So my best advice would be, if it's before October of last year, review the video, because that will show you what the plans were. We don't unfortunately have them, but we do have the minutes available, so we will be able to reference those. Yeah, and I apologize that we don't have a better answer for you.
No, that's good.
Okay, thank you. Good question. I don't imagine there's any subcommittee reports from anybody. No. Okay, then let's move on to first item. All right, so this is item number 1, 1108. And this is here for final approval, and it's a proposal for a 4-unit residential project to be developed using the AUD program, and it consists of the demolition of all structures on site and the construction of 2 two-story duplexes. The unit mix will include 3 2-bedroom and 1 studio apartments ranging in size from 487 to 1,215 square feet, with an average unit size of 867 square feet. The proposed density on the 250 square foot lot is 25 dwelling units per acre on a parcel with a general plan land use designation of medium high density, which allows for 15 to 27 dwelling units per acre. They also propose 4 covered parking spaces and changes to the on-site landscaping. A minor zoning exception for an overheight fence is requested for a site wall plus fencing to be 9.5 feet in height instead of the maximum 8 feet height allowed. Okay. And final approval is requested. Project requires substantial conformance to the plans granted project design approval on July 1st of last year. Okay, do we have the applicant? There we are. Welcome back.
And forgive me, Mr. Gerdine, if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself. You're currently
Yes.
muted.
Yes,
There
I
you go.
just successfully was able to do that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, if you could introduce yourself and through the changes to your project.
Okay, so I'm getting some background noise right now. I'm just wondering if, Kirk, if you could, are you using your, do you have any headphones that you could use, or are you using your computer's audio, or are you calling in by phone?
I'm using my laptop audio. And,
Okay. That sounds better. I don't know. I was just getting some feedback. So please go ahead when you're ready. It sounds like it's okay now.
All right, thank you. Kirk Redine, architect for the project. So it's been a while since we've been in front of the board with this project. It was July last year, as we just heard. It was appealed to City Council, and the council denied the appeal on September 24th. So we're now back with very minor changes, and also with some additions having to do with addressing comments regarding the landscaping from the last time we were there. And we also have a full set of plans now with architectural details and lighting and so on. Since we're looking at the site plan here, we did have a change in square footage, which was a reduction in Unit B, the second unit from the street there. It was just a small reduction of unit size from 861 to 824 square feet. So it's a little less than 40 square feet eliminated. And that was it increased the size of the yard between the duplexes. That's how that reduction was made, increased that yard size in between. Because of some minor changes to the grading in order to make it work out with the civil engineer's design, we also have some steps now. Unit A, you'll see on the south side, the bottom of the page, going up to the entrance into Unit A, there's 2 steps. Same at Unit B, there's 2 steps, and then there's just 1 step at Unit C. In addressing, you'll see this when we get to the landscape plan, and addressing the issue having to do with the trees that we had planted along the south side property line. We now have some tree wells that are drivable with tree grates along that south border. You see those 5 little bump outs, and then there's planting changes. Oh, well, I'll talk about the other changes as we go through the drawings. So we can go to the next sheet, which is floor plans. Very minor change on the north side. We added little FAU closets with doors facing that north side. So you can see at Unit 8, yes, thank you. Unit A and B in the same location for both units. Unit C it's in the soffit, and Unit D, it's not, doesn't affect the exterior at all. But as you might remember with this project, one of the features of the project is that we are doing quite a bit of excavation in order to bring the grade level down in relation to the adjacent property. So we are, that whole north side is anywhere from about 30 inches to 4 feet at the middle of the project between the two duplexes, 4 feet below the adjacent property to the north. And then because that property slopes down towards the back, we're only about a foot lower than the adjacent property at the back of our project. But there is also, in addition to that grade change, there's also an existing fence with a very mature hedge on it that is, at the time, this is, going back almost a year, it was 9'6", measured to roughly 9'6" on average, when we're measured from the highest point of grade on the neighbor's lot. That has now probably gone up at least another foot, I would imagine. But anyway, that existing fence with hedge, in addition to the 4-foot drop, means that nothing along the north side of this project at the first floor can even be seen by the neighbor. So just as a side note, so we can go on. This is just a second floor plan and roof plan. We can go further to the elevations, which is for some reason not appearing.
It looks like we might have just lost the plans for a moment. I'm going to ask Timmy if he's able to restart, or if he needs to switch over. Okay.
So those board members who were present for the previous review last July may remember these elevations. There's very minor changes that have occurred. As I mentioned previously, a Unit A there towards the street, there's a couple of steps that were added at Unit A and B at the entrances. Actually, this also, because of the grading, initially we were thinking that we would be able to slope both the north and the south sides of the property all the way to the street, continuous drop. But on the north side, because of that narrow area between the building and the neighbor, the civil engineer worked out a different program where he's actually sloping in 2 directions at each unit. So that fence that divides, if you're looking at the north elevation there's a fence at the first floor that divides Unit A from Unit B at the first floor, and a fence that divides Unit C from D at the first floor at the rear unit. And basically the grade slopes away in either direction from that fence to catch basins. So and then that flows underground and exits at the street at curb level. So what that meant was that the grade below Unit A and B is a bit higher than it was originally, and 6 inches higher. And that meant, in order to maintain the same exact overall building height, no change to the building height, meant we had to drop the plate height at the second floor. Previously, we had a 9-foot plate height at the second floor on Units A and B, and now it's an 8'6" plate height. So even though we've raised the grade slightly, we've reduced the mass. Also on the east elevation, on Unit D, which is at the top left of the page there, one of the ABR comments was to make the railing that faced out towards the Riviera on that side, a solid railing. Previously, we had at the second floor deck there on the right hand side of that elevation, we had an open rail or partially open rail, and now it's a solid 42-inch high railing, solid plaster. We could go to the next page, please. Other very minor change on the east elevation on the right hand top right of the page there. Thank you. So previously, this little roofed area at the entrance was just a shed roof, but because of needing to make that covered porch area a little bit bigger, we pulled it away from the wall, and so now it's got a little return slope on the right hand side there. Yes, so that little pop out was added. Other than that, there was no change to both of these elevations on this page. Other than, again, you are looking at, in this elevation, you're looking at the back side of unit A and B, and we have dropped the plate height there. You see it's 8.7 instead of 9.1 is what it used to be. So we could go on. I don't need to look at this sections. So architectural details. You'll see these are very traditional in nature, recessed windows, two-piece mission tile with mortar bird stops. We have both the soft curving plaster eave in most cases, which is the third detail up from the bottom on the right-hand side. That's a typical eave, but there's also some instances where we have outriggers, which is shown on the next sheet. But most of these you'll recognize as being very familiar to the El Pueblo Viejo style in which we're working. So we go on to the next sheet unless there's questions. Well, that will come later. There's at the bottom, in from the right a bit is the outrigger detail. The top right is the bay window at the street. See anything else significant here? Grill detail on the bottom left. The kind of soft curving feature that we have at the garage door entrances is on the bottom left there as well. We have a couple of plaster columns, which is shown there near the bottom left. And then the wood kind of fake wood post in between the garages, between units there is the top near the top left there. So it's a wood veneer to make it look like a large post. I think we can go on. So exterior lighting, we've selected a single Handelman fixture, which is all the wall-mounted fixtures will be that fixture shown on the right in the cut sheet on the right bottom. Wherever we have step lights, they'll be covered with a downward pointing grill, also shown there. And we do have some downlights, exterior downlights that are tucked under overhanging eaves, plaster eaves, that is shown there with it's a very small recessed can, has with a 2-inch aperture. So we can go on. Second floor lighting. There's not much there, and nothing visible from the street in at the second floor. You can go on, please. window schedule, civil. Civil engineering, I'm not gonna help this, go on. Go on, thank you. Next page, please. So, so I think we missed the first landscape plan sheet. I think there's one prior to this, actually. L10. No? This looks like the hardscape plan to me. Doesn't look like the landscape plan. It's not the landscape plan. So this is the hardscape plan. I think it appears that we're missing the sheet, which is, I don't know how that would have happened. Either that or it's getting skipped over, because that's crucial. We need that landscape planting sheet. But anyway, this shows basically we have three kinds of surfacing. The driveway is a permeable concrete, which doesn't require control joints, so there's none shown. The pedestrian pathway is a permeable imitation brick, and some of the other small patios are the same. And then there's a gravel that also works as a mulch for the planting area. So it's a xeriscape kind of look that we've been talking about and representing from the beginning. That's reinforced by that gravel base. So we can go on.
And Mr. Green, unfortunately, we don't see L1.0 on the plans that are on the city website either. So not sure what happened there, but let's keep moving forward.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
there is a planting plan L3.1. Is that?
Maybe it'll take care of it. Let's take a look. Let me see.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, there's irrigation and further on. Yep, there it is. 3.1, please.
Oh, okay. So the changes made here were addressing comments last time. So this is a planning plan. It's very close to what was reviewed previously with a few minor changes. And one of them that Mr. Cunningham, board member Cunningham, had asked for was greater variety of canopy trees. So originally we had 5 olive trees along the driveway there, and we switched one out to an acacia. So we now have, there's 3 acacias, Strelitzia, I believe, is that right? Stenophila, the shoestring acacia. 2 along the north side for screening, and then 1 at the driveway, near the driveway entrance there. We also were, we were struggling going back and forth along the north side of the property because the neighbor was concerned that we not put planting that was going to increase the shading on their property. And so they didn't want anything along there that was going to exceed the height of the building. And we experimented with different things. So what we've come up with here is a series of Strelitzia nicolai, giant birds of paradise, that are basically not going to grow higher than the fencing and hedge that's already there. So, and you may also remember there is a very large, it's not shown on this landscape plan, but on the previous one that was submitted, about at the garage, the back of the garage for Unit C, there's a very large canopy tree on the neighboring property, which will be preserved and protected. We already did some root exploration to make sure there was no major roots that were going to be damaged by the new retaining that we're doing along the property line there. And so that tree is to be preserved. And then there's, as I said, just some minor shrubbery and flowering plant and fruiting plant changes, which are all indicated there. And we can get into that if there are questions, but none of it that has changed substantially from our original submittal. Let me see if there's anything here in my notes that I wanted to mention. I think I covered it. Oh, there is, if you go further on, there's detail for the grates along the driveway and some other planting details. It's probably too far now. We're into notes. And let me see if I can find the page for you now, where the great detail is.
There we go. L1.3.
Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Excellent. And so we're going to move on to questions. Let's start with, public comment.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak regarding this project?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just asked for members of the public attending, if you could please raise your hand using the hand icon, and I'll call on you and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. And I do not see anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this project. And unless, Matthew, we received any written public comment.
We have not, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's give it a few seconds because it does take some people a while to find that hand, and then we can move on. Okay, let's close public comments and move on to questions from the board. Let's start with Mr. Cunningham. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I do have some questions, and bear with me, please, because I've scribbled notes and I'm going to have to read all those in order. Okay, I'll start with just a technical question on the retaining wall footings along the north side. Kirk, can you tell me how deep those footings are below grade?
Yes, in fact, there's a detail on A31. If we could go to that sheet. There's two details there. They show soil cover of 24 inches at a minimum. And, but then we also show that where the larger trees are to be planted, that it would be convert to a grade beam.
Excellent, thank you. On the north elevation, the window alignment on, and I'm sorry, I'm skipping back and forth on drawings, so I'm going to challenge Timmy to find what I'm talking about. North elevation units A and B. The 4 windows on that elevation are somewhat, I don't know, contemporary in appearance, and obviously very symmetrical on that elevation. Is it possible for you to vary those in any manner to give it a little more interest?
Well, we had, I mean, I'm sure we could. For example, we could make one or more of them a single instead of a double, if that was, desirable. The factor about the height of them, however, we feel pretty settled on, because we're wanting to maintain privacy in relation to the neighbor. So the ones on the two outer ends on the unit A and B, the outside ones, those are both bathrooms. So privacy is especially a concern. The other two are bedrooms. But was a request specifically by the neighbor to limit the capacity at the second floor for the tenants to view and to look down into their yard and on their building. So that's why the sill height is where it's at.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'm just wondering whether you could vary the windows in any way to depart from the obvious symmetry. I know that you've added the chimney and the roof pop out on unit B, which is nice. But I think the window alignment is still somewhat monotonous, and I'd just like to know if you can vary that to even to a minor degree to get away from that symmetry.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Can you point out, and again, sorry to jump around here, on the irrigation plan where the backflow preventer is located?
Yes, it's top left. Yeah, there it is, that little rectangular box there. And it's so on the north side, it's hidden by the fact that of the retaining wall that's running along the property line there, which drops the grade about 32 inches or so. And then there's planting as well to protect or reduce the visibility from the street.
Okay, thank you. That's a nice location. Final question. Can we go back to the planting plan, please? Okay, thank you.
Could I make one other comment about the symmetry issue?
Sure.
Because this was something that was brought up and discussed on several occasions as we went through ABR, and also at the city council, in fact. And those units, and my argument was that you find this as a very typical feature of traditional Spanish colonial and El Pueblo Viejo design and massing features, is there's both symmetry and asymmetry. The front two units are symmetrical.
Okay, I appreciate that. I guess my issue with it is.
Yeah. So that's it. I'm not going on and on about it. I'm just going to say that, the argument that I've made is the front two units are symmetrical, the back two are asymmetrical. And that was kind of the play that we had going on.
Okay, thank you. Now, on the planting plan, can you explain why you have the large gap between the shoestring acacia and the row of 4 olives along the driveway? It seems like there is a pretty good view of units A and B from the neighboring residents, and I'm wondering why that, first of all, the driveway can't be better shaded, and second, why you can't have 2 or 3 more trees in there to screen the view of units A and B.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry I don't have photographs to show you, but there is a retaining wall with that both retains and is a fence of about 6 foot in height, with hedge growing up over it along that property line, but it occurs on the neighbor's property. And there's also a tree in that vicinity on the neighbor's property as well. So there's already screening in that sense. And that's why our wall starts where it does, is because the neighbor wall ends at that location. Yeah.
I'm going to
So-
jump in here.
Mhm.
Sorry, this is Kevin. I recall this coming up at the time the PDA was granted and the tree locations were essentially reviewed at that point. So I appreciate the question, but I believe we've addressed that as a board.
Okay.
So let's move on.
Okay, I have one final question. Sorry, I know I already said that, but I'm going to say ask one more. Kirk, is there any reason why you do not have a tree located at the south end of the open space between units B and C? Seems like that might be a nice spot to provide some shade for people using that space.
Well, yeah, it's also one of the few yard areas that's not shaded. So it's also nice to have, it is the common space for those units. I imagine it's the common outdoor space that's going to be used the most. And it seems to me that it's nice to have, opportunities for sun as well as shade. So that's, yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
All right.
Okay, let's go to David, please. Questions?
What's the dimension from on where you have those strelitzias? What's the dimension from the retaining wall to the face of the building? I'm sort of questioning the use of strelitzia there, because those things can get really big, and you are going to sacrifice access through that side yard if you have those plants there, but because they're capable of getting, I mean, I have one in my yard that's 20 feet high and probably 15 feet wide with multiple trunks. And I just, I sort of question the use of that particular plant there. I know you want some.
Which number is that?
I'm sorry?
Which number is that planting?
7.
7. Oh, there it is. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. You got 3 and then 4. Well, what does that dimension occur in the side yard there? I mean, how much room do you have to plant those?
Yeah, 1 second. It's between the garages and the existing fencing, and again,
Yeah.
property line, I believe it's 3 feet. And those are not areas that you would need to access.
Okay. Well, except if you wash windows or paint the building at some occasion, but.
Yeah, but, well, there's no windows there, but yes, to paint the building, it's true, you would need to get back there.
3 feet. I mean, I don't know. I'd like to get Bob's feedback on that too, but that plant is capable of getting quite large. So just a heads up for you guys. But, I mean, it will get some height, but 3 feet is not much room. And
I would, since David mentioned my name, I would add that, he makes a very good point. I think it's worth trying for the purpose that Kirk stated, but they will demand maintenance as they grow, and they'll need to be controlled because they can get huge.
Yeah. Just a heads up, Kurt. That's all. That's the only question I really had. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Olson, any questions?
Thank you. I have no questions.
Okay, Mr. Six, questions?
Yes, Kirk, the Marvin series of windows that you called out are true divided light, aluminum clad wood?
Yes, in fact, the specification on the window schedule needs to be corrected. But yeah, it's aluminum clad. They're shown as fiberglass, but we found out just a couple of weeks ago that they don't do a true divided light with fiberglass. So we are going to aluminum clad.
So it's not reflected, the fiberglass is reflected on the plans now and you will change?
Yes.
Okay. And you don't have a detail on the interior, you have, and I understand fully the details for the fencing along the north and south property lines, but what is the detail of the fencing in between the common yard and in the middle of the project? Did you detail that or would it be similar?
Well, no, we just call it out as, one by redwood vertical. And we do have, we do show it on the elevation, but no, it hasn't been detailed on the plans yet.
So it would just be a simple post, wood post and
Yes.
Rails?
Yes.
Okay. And then if I remember correctly, the reason you're not fencing the south property line or the back property line is that there's a huge hedge there already by neighbor?
Right. There's existing fencing. Wherever we're not showing new fencing, there is existing fencing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no other questions.
Okay, Mr. Whalen.
No questions.
Okay. I don't have any questions. Did we get everybody? I think we did. Yep. All right. Let's move on to comments and we need to move our meeting along. So let's start with Mr. Six. Comments, please.
Yes, I find it an exemplary project and with a few cleanup items such as making sure that the specifications for the windows are on the plans and the detail for the interim fence is on the plans. I don't have any problems with the symmetry of the windows on the front two units on the north elevation. So those are my comments. And I think it's ready for final.
Okay. Mr. Olson.
I also think it's a handsome project and it's ready for final.
Okay. Mr. Black.
I would concur with those two comments.
Okay. No concerns for the landscape? Any comment there?
Well, as I indicated in my questions, I think the use of the giant birds is somewhat problematic. I think the landscape architect should sort of look at that and just make sure that he understands what he's getting. So, or what's going to happen down the road with it. So that's all.
Okay. Mr. Cunningham, comments?
Yes, I agree. This is a very nice project, particularly in light of what it's replacing, which is a very unfortunate addition done in the, I think the early 70s. This will be, I appreciate, Kirk, that you and the owner have gone through the appeal process and brought this through against neighborhood opposition, because I believe this will ultimately be the most attractive building on the block. I do have one request, and that is the lower southeast corner of the property, you have a fruiting fig tree that is in a pretty large planting space, and I understand maybe there's some desire to have the fruit, but I think in this location, it would be much better if you had a large evergreen tree that would screen your unit D, I guess, from adjacent views. That's all I would have. I think, again, I think this is a very nice project, but I do think you should consider putting a large evergreen tree in that corner. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Timmy, can you flip to the landscape plan L3.1, I think? Let's just. Oh. Zoom in on that southeast corner, so the lower right. There we go. And Bob, your concern is just the fig tree may not provide enough visual screening?
Yes, it's not, it probably will not reach more than 20 feet ultimately over its lifespan. And it's a deciduous tree, so 3 months out of the year, it's not going to provide any screening, any effective screening. And again, it's a large planter. It's a nice opportunity to have a fairly large tree.
Okay, let's see, Mr. Whalen, any comments?
I agree with the other board members. It's a extremely handsome design, full of the Santa Barbara details that we are all so enamored of. I would underline the landscape comments by our two professionals about the Strelitzia. This is one of my favorite plants. It just begs to be seen. Besides it being very large, no one will ever see it back here. And it seems like kind of a waste of a really handsome plant. And then a second landscape as a comment would be the acacias seem to be very, very close on the north side to that block wall and even on the south where it's less of a problem. But I question that size and location of those trees. That's all I have.
Okay. Well, my own feelings that I agree with Mr. Six. I think this is a really nicely executed project, and I do hope that it's built out to the standards that we see here on the drawings. And I do recall the discussion about the sort of rear property line and the existing hedge that is there, and the fact that there's the change in grade at the back that so there isn't a direct privacy issue necessarily that fig tree was going to address, but I can understand that it would be nice to have an evergreen tree, but it's also nice to have something that's fruiting. So I would defer to the project's landscape professional to determine what was appropriate for that location. Those are my feelings. So we get comments from everybody? We didn't leave anybody out, okay. All right, somebody prepared to make a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I will. I just want a straw vote on the pear tree, the fig tree.
Okay. How many board members feel the fig tree is the appropriate choice for that location? Let's do a roll call vote for that.
All right, this is Mary. I will take the roll call vote. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
I'll go along with it, yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
No, I believe we need a larger evergreen tree.
Board Member Olson,
No.
and Board Member Whalen.
I'll vote no. I don't really think any tree is necessary there. The adjacent properties, there's no view involved, and this would perhaps give some view from that unit D.
So I'm sorry, then your vote would be yes. You're accepting the fig tree.
No, the vote is no for not accepting the fig tree.
or you want a evergreen?
I would not put any tree at all.
That's not the
I'm
vote.
gonna be difficult.
So, okay, well, the straw vote was the fig tree the appropriate tree for that location? So your vote is no, that the
I'll vote no.
the fig tree, okay. So that's a tie. So the motion fails, or the vote is a fail, yes. So,
I'll make my motion with the fig tree and see where it goes. Or
Great.
is that redundant?
no, let's do that.
Okay, so I will make a motion for final approval with the following comments that this is an exemplary project and we'll be happy to see it developed as to see its sensitivities toward the neighbors. That the applicant will change his window specifications to provide a true divided light aluminum clad wood window throughout the project. And he will detail the common fence between the units as a redwood vertical slat with redwood posts and rails.
Okay, we probably have to read the CEQA. Actually, we did that for PDA, don't we? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I will second the motion.
Okay,
With the request that the applicant consider changing the tree to a taller evergreen tree. It's just simply a request. Thank you.
With it being a request, I would add that qualifier to my motion.
okay. Matthew, is that appropriate?
I apologize, my cam can't turn on. Can you ask the question again? I apologize, I was running back to the computer.
Is the motion was for final approval, but there was a request that one of the trees be changed. It's not a requirement, just a suggestion or a request. Is that?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Great.
The applicant would need to return for review after final on consent for that change if they choose to go that route.
Got it. Okay. So that's the motion on the floor. Let's do a roll call vote.
All right, thank you. This is Mary. I will take the roll call vote. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
Right, motion passes.
Okay, final approval. Congratulations, and thank you for
Thanks very
a
much.
very nice project. Good luck.
Thank you all.
All right. We're moving on to item number 221 West Pueblo Street here, which is a proposal for a commercial remodel. Project entails a 144 square foot addition to the first floor lobby, resurfacing of all exterior facades, either with plaster or repaired wood siding, demolition of an exterior stair, ADA improvements, and changes to hardscape and landscaping. A parking space is proposed to be replaced with 2 new parking spaces. Project design and final approval is requested. Project requires compliance with the project compatibility analysis and the outdoor lighting design guidelines. Project requires a CEQA guideline sections 15183 exemption. Project's consistent with general plan, and this project was last reviewed December 2nd of last year. It looks like we have the applicants here. You may have to unmute yourself. And introduce yourself.
Unmute me, Mr. George. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so
So forgive me, this is Ellen Kokenda. I'm picking up some background noise. If we could just do a quick audio test. Chair Moore, I went ahead and muted you because I thought it was you at first. Kimberly, could you test your audio, please?
I just unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes. And then, I'm sorry, you'll have to introduce yourself, Design Arc. I don't, if you could test your audio as well.
Hello, I'm Mark Shields, representing the Sanborns and Design Arc today.
Okay. All right, I think that's okay. So please go ahead when you're ready. Thank you.
Okay.
True nature, landscape architecture.
okay, welcome. Matthew, do we have the comments from the last review?
Okay.
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair.
Great. So it's continued indefinitely. The board gives the project positive comments, provide more information on the screening elements, relate the planter retaining wall material to the neighborhood, maintain proposed trees and add additional evergreen trees in the parking lot, consider removing the Mexican fan palm in the front yard. The colors as proposed in print form are acceptable. Provide color swatches. Mechanical screens shall be sympathetic to the materials used. Refine the locations and design of the horizontal sunscreens on the roof. Okay. All right. I'll turn it over to you and you can walk us through what you've been up to.
Okay, and thank you. Good afternoon, members of the board. And I'd like to start with just a quick sketch of the front elevation. And if you could enlarge that visual a bit, thank you. Just a general synopsis. We inherited this project from the owners, Tom and Barbara Sanborn, and what is now, it's located on Pueblo Street, West Pueblo Street, between De La Vina and Bath, if anybody's wondering where the location is. And it was a dilapidated kind of early 70s office building. And the owners really wanted to rehab it and fix it up and make it more attractive for some potential new tenants. Overall, right now it has horizontal cedar and some vertical cedar siding that's badly deteriorated with all kinds of damage from woodpeckers to warping to just discoloration. So overall, we want to really give the building a nice facelift. And in general, there are two buildings essentially attached.
I'm sorry to jump in here, but I think we were all present for the initial review of this project. So I think we can
I'll
jump forward and show us how you've
brief.
addressed the comments that made.
Make it brief. Okay. Want to go to the second page, George, or someone to the second page? One more. Okay, if you could expand the floor plan a bit. I think it's important to, thank you. I think it's important to remember that we completely redid the connection between the two buildings, providing a nicer lobby and an upper deck circulation space. We've also taken a look at the handicap ramp and a new entry, widen the entry, as well as new landscaping in the parking lot, which Kim True is going to address. Keep moving on towards the elevations. Those are the existing elevations. The only thing of note here is in the upper right-hand corner, if you were to expand that elevation. The The central space, you can see it was a convoluted mess of stairways and balconies and whatnot. We've completely gutted that with our new combined lobby. So we can move on now to the final elevations. Okay, our proposed elevations, again, replacing the cedar siding, going to plaster. We've retained 3 different plaster colors to give the building a nice contrast between the layers, trying to really modernize the look of the overall building. The connection between the 2 buildings is cedar stained, and the mechanical screens are actually existing. You mentioned that in your comments. One on the more easterly building, 221, is, I believe, metal, and we plan to repaint it. And the mechanical screen on the more westerly building, 225, is wood, and we plan to repaint that as well. Those are not shown in these elevations. Overall, we're keeping the existing windows and really not touching the building much except for the interior lobby area and redoing the cedar siding with plaster, and that would be integral color plaster. The landscaping has changed drastically. We took under consideration, I think it was Bob Cunningham who mentioned eliminating the tall, I believe it's a Mexican fan palm at the entry, which is on the north side of the building. And we really could go either way with that. And we're really, we understand consideration to make it match the other 2 palms that we're adding. And so really it's up to the board to make a determination, and really we're fine either way, either remove it or leave it. We don't want it to hold up our approval process, however. So we'd like to make that a condition if it is removed, that we go into the city to get a removal permit after this hearing. Moving right along towards the parking area. I think there was some question, actually go back if you don't mind. There are some questions about the horizontal louvered screening, and I have a sample of it here, George, if you want to hand it to me. We studied the various locations for the screening, and it's actually I don't know if you guys can see that here. It's a thin metal product, sunshade designed by Louvertech. They make some shapes that are a foil. We thought that was a bit too contemporary for this project, so we're proposing to use these horizontal rectangular louvers. The section is rectangular, and they attach easily with vertical cleats to the facade of the building, which will cover the existing kind of large, expansive, and in a way awkward dark windows, which we're keeping. And so we studied the various locations, and we're quite comfortable with where we have them placed. We eliminated some of the louvers that were on the back side of the parking area, but we've kept the horizontal louvers in the front on Pueblo Street. We're proposing to keep them the dark anodized color to match the existing dark anodized aluminum. I think they're old Carnier window frames that the building is primarily composed of. We plan to paint the windows are recessed deeply, and there's a canted sill that is now dark color to match the windows. We plan to paint that a bit lighter just to lighten up the depth of the darker looking windows. And all in all, I think overall, we're attempting to give the whole building a nice fresh look and make it feel a little bit more upbeat, attractive. Kim, if you wouldn't mind. We can also show you the plastic colors if you like. I've got those handy. The lighter color is this off-white tan color. You can see it up there. There is a medium color, which has a bit more gray in it. And then a darker color, which is a bit gray, but on the light side of gray. And if I hold them all together,
Perfect. That's just what I was going to ask.
that is the contrast between the two, not dramatic, but a subtle contrast between the different layers. The wood siding that connects the two buildings in our central remodeled lobby is going to be stained a light gray color. And we
Mr.
have
Chair? If I may, sorry.
Slope sill are going to be this color.
Yes, Matthew. Sorry, one moment.
We do have a color board, rather than going, I know the physical samples tend to be more helpful, but we do also have a color board for future.
You do have a color board, right? Mhm.
There it is.
There you go.
Okay.
So that's the synopsis of where we're headed with the colors. And then we have some railings in the deck area in between the two buildings. Are going to be the stainless steel tension wire railings with vertical dark anodized aluminum supports that are not shown here in color board.
Okay.
And I think that wraps it up for the exterior. If Kim would mind stepping forward with the landscape plan.
And one more.
There you go.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great.
Hear you.
Okay, so going back to some of the comments that we had, we've added evergreen trees to the southern parking lot perimeter. There's an existing island oak there that, calling it disfigured from topping is being polite. The structure on it's not salvageable, so we're proposing now to remove that and replace that with the evergreen olive. So we would have two of those down at the parking lot between the two culvert areas that we're proposing. And then we reconfigured the parking lot islands a little bit to give a little more generous planting. And we're able to get a tree in the middle of the parking lot, so the evergreen olive in the center there. And then I think back to the trees in the front, the fan palm, we're requesting removal from the Street Tree Advisory Committee. And I think if it's approved, then we'll remove it and replace it with one of the king palms. And if that is declined, then we look to your guidance on whether we should just put another palm in the planter with that, or we just live with the king, with the queen, with the, the Washingtonia palm that's there. So some guidance from the board to bring to the Street Tree Advisory Committee would be appreciated. And I think that was really it as far as the comments from the landscape plan. Everything else is pretty much the same. It was reviewed by water conservation, so we have eliminated anything that was medium water use and just retained all of the low water use plants, and then the palette and the design was approved by water conservation. Were there any other questions regarding the...
If that is it, anything else to add?
I want to add that we've added quite a bit of permeable paving as well in the parking area and a new bike rack.
Okay. If we could point out where that is, that'd be helpful, I think. It's hard to, the hatch is a little. The permeable paving. Is that in the center aisle or center parking spaces?
It's in the next plan.
It's around the trees, the 3 trees in the middle of the parking lot. Yeah, there.
There we go.
Back one.
Go to that's lighting. There's one more.
Page 3. Page 3 would be the
Page
next.
3. Site plan. Page 3 is the permeable, there you go.
And then there's a note about the trash enclosure in the back. Something's happening back there.
We've rebuilt it and reclad it, so it's much nicer than it was before.
So what's changed? Let's say that. Let's say that. What-
Yeah. Is it, that's the gates wood, right?
It's currently wood, we're gonna replace it with a 7-foot tall ceiling wall.
Yeah, the trash enclosure is currently wood, but we're gonna replace it with a CMU wall. And then the gate is wood.
Okay.
So in general, adding a lot more permeable paving really down the center of the site.
Okay, great. And then I noticed there was a exterior lighting plan. We should probably look at that before we get into questions.
And quickly on the trash enclosure, there's an existing Grewia, Kaffir lavender starflower at the edge of the parking lot where the block is. So that could be trained on to soften the wall of the trash enclosure.
Okay. I'd suggest we look at your lighting plan.
Go to that.
It's the last page of the set.
It's the last page on the drawings.
Okay. Walk us through that.
Looking at our little lighting plan here. We have just discrete down lighting. Here and there, we have some horizontal Vega lighting for step lights that you would see. I'm having a hard time seeing it, it's so small. If we're going from left to right on the lighting plan, there's a bollard. You can maybe expand those a bit. Yes, okay, so we have up the stairs at the front entry on Pueblo Street, we have some horizontal, very thin LED Vega lights, which are recessed into the sides of the CMU that go up the right side and the left side of the stairway. We have some discrete landscape lighting as well at the front entry, just low level. We've got some beautiful existing palm trees out there. We'd like to light on the low level, not up lighting, I believe. And then if we could go scroll down to the visuals of the lights. There we go. The other existing wall luminaires we have are Vega, which is light number E. And we have some recessed ceiling lights, which are F at the lobby entry, downlights. And we have some recessed floor lights in the entry as well, but they're not out on the street. The landscape lights are shielded. That would be L3. And then our parking bollards, L1, are spread throughout the parking area.
Okay, can we just go up to the plan really quickly so we can identify where those are? Zoom in, there we go. Okay. So L2 were the bollards.
Mm-hmm. L1s are there at the entry. You can see two of them flanking the entry to the back of the building, which is off the parking. There you go.
Okay.
The recessed step lights are A, which are in the walls, the linear step lights. The landscape lights are L3s. There and there, we've got some beautiful existing palms in the front. We're gonna uplight just a little bit. And the B is an uplight, which is a recessed uplight in grade, right there. And then the L3s, which are L2s, which are on the perimeter, are those bullet lights, I believe, Kim? Is that true? The L3s, which are L2s, which are down to the west side of the parking. We can look at those in the
L3.
Yeah, that's right. They're just little bullet
So
lights.
mounted up and then facing down.
The other lights are the architectural lights, which are recessed in the canopies over the entry. If you want to scroll down to those would be Ds, I believe. Oh, yes. No, actually, there should be Fs. The Fs are the recessed downlights or flush downlights.
Okay. I think we
that
can
about
move on.
concludes our presentation.
Great. Okay, we are going to open public comment. Is there anybody from the public wishing to address the board?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, just as a reminder, if you wish to speak on this item, you would raise your hand using the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel, and I'll call on you and you will have 2 minutes to speak. I will give you a moment if to identify that, and I don't see anyone who has raised their hand. So I'll ask Matthew if we have any written comment, and Mr. Chair, I'll keep you posted if anybody else raises their hand in the meantime.
Mr. Chair, we have not received any written comment.
Okay, thank you. So we will close public comment and move on to questions from the board. All right, Mr. Olson, do you have any questions?
Yes. Mark, can you show us, locate for us where the screens are on the roof? In a plan?
Yes, I can. Is there a roof plan?
We didn't provide the roof plan, but you can see them on the elevations.
I believe,
I think we've indicated
sorry
where they are.
Sorry to interrupt, but I believe when the screening was reflective of the horizontal screens on the front of the building, I believe, not necessarily the roof screening from memory, even though that's what the minutes said. Yeah. So I don't think they're not replacing the roof equipment or the roof screening. So that's outside of the scope of our review at this point.
Right, the comments were only to study the horizontal louvers, which were attaching to the facade of the building.
Okay.
So you can see that.
Yeah, but he thought they were talking about the roof.
No other questions?
Okay, Mr. Six, any questions?
Yes, so I thought we had a comment and concern about the material of the front retaining wall, as we see right here at, at the front property line. I thought, Mark, was it not poured concrete or formed concrete now? And we considered that it might be better with a stone veneer. What is reflected now?
Right now we have board formed concrete, and it was just a request to study that from the board. Both the owner and I have walked up and down the street on West Pueblo there, and there's really no defining, frontage street walls that are exceptional in any way, shape, or form. It varies from a low plaster wall to landscape to a brick wall, and so there's really no direction in terms of what should be there. In terms of historically on the street, there is completely hodgepodge, and we felt that the horizontal board form concrete was very appropriate for this style of building, and actually an attractive solution. It would actually be the kind of the most repaired and kind of focused on entry on the entire block. And I think that it will really enhance the landscaping and provide a nice architectural base to our project.
Okay,
We could consider doing those in possibly the Mesa Buff integral concrete color. I think that would be a nice, maybe soften up. I think this rendering shows them as being just normal concrete color, but I would ask the board to consider maybe adding the integral color Mesa Buff to those walls.
okay. But it's not on the plans as Mesa Buff color now, correct?
I don't think we called out a color for those.
Now these louvers that are dressing the entries, they will be black. They will be the black, and they will have these vertical supports behind them, correct? And
Yes, they're they're spaced quite far apart.
the vertical
And
support.
the verticals are,
Yeah.
and the louvers are kind of a dark anodized bronze to go with the existing Conair, the old Conair dark anodized bronze storefront.
And the vertical supports are the same
color.
anodized. Same anodized.
Yes.
Yes. And then, can we go to the site, the architectural site plan? So you show with your, I think it's the pink or purple cross hatching, that those obviously are areas where you're patching the asphalt.
Purple, I'm looking for
The
purple.
purple. Yeah, like when you bend around the curve of the drive and the entry, yeah.
Oh,
The hands
that's where
there.
we're expanding the curve of the driveway. So that's a patch.
That's,
Right.
that was shown for stormwater management.
That's a stormwater management, is it a swale?
Yeah, no, that we're gonna make it asphalt.
Yeah,
just
that's
like the rest,
asphalt.
But it was just a polygon to get a calculation.
We had to put it's asphalt, but that's a size that we had to measure for the Schwimmt requirements. So it's not a change in material. Sorry about that.
It's easing the access to the parking lot.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're reshaping that finger.
we should reshape that entry.
Okay, so then there's two other small patch areas, and I believe those are asphalt also. The little triangle up
That's
there,
correct. That's correct.
okay, so
Mhm.
are you gonna that leads to my question, are you gonna recap or at least fog the entire parking lot?
Yes, I think we are. I'm gonna fix it up. Mhm.
Okay, and then is that noted on the plan somewhere? I didn't
If
find
it's
it.
not, we promise to do so.
Okay, and then it seems like there is the existing drive as it comes up past the building is concrete material, is that correct? Or is it asphaltic concrete?
On the west side, Richard? On the
Like right above where the driveway curves, and we just had our hand for the purple patch. Yes, now right above that, you follow that, you see a arrow going both ways with a spot. One says concrete, one says asphalt. Is there a change in materials there?
Yes,
Yes, there is.
it's existing concrete.
It's the existing concrete where it meets the asphalt drive.
Okay, so the existing concrete will go all the way back to the pedestrian materials and under the what is the extent of that concrete to the left of us? Does it
Does it
stop?
go into the-
Yeah, it joins, there's a line that's shown, that shows the shape of it. It's simply because it's existing.
It's hard to see.
This line here,
That's the
it
concrete.
goes up to this new parking
and terminates. Oops.
So actually, these will not be asphalt. We're gonna have to match the adjacent material, which is concrete.
So where does the concrete?
The concrete is essentially by itself, and it extends all the way up to the larger arrow towards the eastern edge of the property. And we're going to match that where you'll see the new permeable paving for the small single car parking stall. Number 10. So there's a swath of concrete that's existing that will be repaired as it reaches that compact number 10 parking.
Okay,
which is now permeable.
So to clarify my question, will parking lot 30 and 31 also be concrete?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I get that then. And the
It's
only
like a dividing line.
I get it, but at where it bends, you have a little finger of asphalt, or was that not to be concrete?
That's concrete.
That is concrete.
Yeah, that should be
That
concrete.
should be.
Okay, thank you. And I just, you're fine, you say on your plans that the existing roof screening, mechanical screens will be repaired. Are those in good enough shape to not be more appropriate to replace the whole things?
They were replaced last year, and they are in decent shape, and we just plan to paint them, really just to give them a nice coat of paint.
Okay, I get it. So they were just replaced. Thank you. That's my questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Whalen, any questions?
No, no questions, Chair Moore.
Okay, Mr. Olson.
You had already asked me for questions.
Oh, already done your questions. Okay. It's hard to keep track this way. See, Mr. Black, any questions?
There I am. Could we go to the landscape plan, please? So I guess my first question is this, you folks are here for a final, is this what's considered a final working drawing, planting plan? Is that the intent? Because it looks a little loose to me.
Yeah. We're here for PDA, not final, but pushing it forward wouldn't hurt.
Well, there's a certain level of detail that I see lacking on the landscape plan. I mean,
It's not final. It's not construction document level.
okay, so you're not asking for final.
No.
Okay, good. Well, that makes it clear, because there's some items that I would expect to be on your plans that I don't see. And okay,
Makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. So could you reiterate the situation with the palms out at the street then? There's an existing Washingtonia, but you want to add 2 more, assuming that the board buys off on?
We initially had the existing Washingtonia and 2 palms, and Mr. Cunningham had suggested that we remove the Washingtonia and replace it with a 3rd. So we have 3 palms of the same species there. And so we're considering that, but that is up to the Street Tree Advisory Committee. So we've been discussing that with Mr. Slack and going through that process. So
okay.
We'd like to have approval either way. Either we could, if they approve removing it, then we will replace it And if they do not allow us to remove it, then we would just be proposing 2 new trees this time.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Let's see, one question. At the top there in the middle, vertical accent tree. If I remember right, your legend says that that would be either jacaranda or maybe erythrina. Is that right?
Yeah, we're looking at the jacaranda,
Okay.
but some species are proposed, but we're leaning towards the jacaranda.
So you're comfortable with a tree that could probably get 40 feet high and 30 or 40 feet wide and drop lots of flowers on the cars parked there? You don't have a concern with that?
We actually are. There's an existing elevator tower that's there that's we'd like to screen a bit. And so that's what we were thinking, that jacaranda would fill that eastern corner up a bit and kind of blend into the building.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of species that would probably do the job, but I just want to make sure that and I'm sure you're aware, Kim, that how big those things get, so, and how messy they can get.
Yes, and it's most for planter, luckily, at that spot. But there would be a little flower fall in the parking stall. We understand that.
Okay. One other question. So when you come back, you're going to have an irrigation plan?
Yeah.
Okay. No other questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Do you have questions?
Yes, thank you. So Mark and Kim, can you explain how light L3 is not an uplight?
Depends on which way you point it.
Okay, but it looks like an uplight. I'm not sure how how else you would point it.
It's got the screen on it. Let's find out where it is on the plans. Okay, can we look at the?
I think you said you wanted to accent the palm trees.
Let's locate it on the plan. We can find it. I think it's to the left. The front of the property on the public L3. Yeah. It has a lid on it that I think shines the light about 30 degrees horizontally. So it's not a direct uplight.
Okay. Can we go to the parking lot planting plan, please? Okay, at spaces 16, 11, 16, and 17, if you, and question first, is that a raised curb around the trees in those planter islands?
Yes.
Okay. Then you have a redundant wheel stop at the end of those 3 parking stalls, 11, 16, and 17. Why couldn't you simply enlarge that planter and replace that wheel stop with a curb, thereby getting more open ground and a healthier environment for the tree?
I think if we can, if the city will let us, we'd absolutely like to do that.
Okay, and then I can't tell the dimensions, but at those 2 end islands, you've also got a couple of appendage islands that look to me like as if they may be large enough to accommodate a small tree. Can you tell me what those dimensions are and whether or not you believe you can squeeze another couple of trees in?
Are we squeezing trees in there? They're just succulents, aren't they?
Yeah, they're just succulents at this time. The upper, what's the dimension on the upper one?
if we're looking at the small ones, those aren't trees, those are just succulents, and I would say it's about a 4 foot, minimum 4 to 5 foot wide planter.
And the bottom one looks about 4 and the upper one looks about 5.
Okay. And then along the eastern and western edges of the parking lot, same theme, can you expand those edge planters to achieve a little more planting area? Again, it looks like if you were to draw a line parallel to the property line, bring it out about 2 more feet, and just have a continuous curve rather than all those wheel stops, you would have a larger planter and less costly maintenance over time with the wheel stops. That's a question.
That's a good question for the city if they'll let us do that, but we'll study that for sure. I think anything we can do to increase the size of the planters is a good approach.
Okay. I'm sorry.
There's a large wall on that side of the property. So I don't know if we have footings underneath there, but definitely might be able to do some planting. But I don't know that we'll be able to get trees in there. We'd have to do some investigation on that.
Sure. You know, I'm not implying that you should put trees in there. I'd just like to see a larger planter if you can accommodate it.
Great.
Larger footprint.
And finally, I do not see you are on the agenda for the Street Tree Advisory Committee's next meeting, which is this coming Thursday. So you'd be waiting another month to get that determination regarding the setback Washingtonia palm tree. Does that fit within your schedule? It would be the first Thursday in July.
I think if we were to apply, depending on the board's purview about their decision about that tree, I think we would apply ASAP, and we still have to do the working drawing, so a month is just about right.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. That's all the questions.
Okay. And let's see, we had everybody with their questions. Did we get everybody? Mr. Whalen, we got you? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So, yes. Okay, great. So I guess we're all done with our questions. So let's move to comments. Richard, do you want to start?
Public comment?
I believe we did that already.
Okay.
So, if we could get you up on the screen.
Yeah,
there we go.
I'm here.
Up on the screen, please.
So I think it's a nice project. I think that the comments about increasing the landscaping in the parking lot are very good and should be pursued. I think that I would readily accept the board formed concrete if on the front retaining wall, if it was in a colored concrete as suggested Mesa Buff. I think that I think that's about it. It's agendized for final, but I think it's certainly not ready for final as the working drawings haven't been done. So I think PDA is appropriate for this at this time. I'm still a little, if we go to the front elevation, I still think that the vertical louver above on the, as we're facing it on the right-hand side, above the low roof on the right-hand side is contrary to how you're using the screen. And I wouldn't, I would suggest that you take it down to the level of the gray horizontal soffit, but that's a minor issue for me, but I think it would look better if it was taken down to that. Other than that, that's my comments. Good project. Oh, excuse me, one more. I do think that Bob's comment on the quote unquote non-uplight flooding the palm trees is not appropriate and would easily, with the owner's manipulation, violate the outdoor the lighting guidelines.
Okay. David?
Architecturally, I agree. I think it's a really nice improvement, and it's really going to be a nice project. And relative to the landscape, I'll just say that I'll just look forward to seeing the final plans when they come back for final. That's all.
Oh, okay. Bob? I could have you on screen. Actually, let's get all the board members on the screen.
Okay. I think this is a really nice project. I think I said that the first time it came through. I would just ask that the applicants explore every possibility for expanding landscaping in the parking lot, including adding trees where they can fit and expanding the planting to accommodate as much open ground as possible. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Whalen?
As to reiterate other comments, it's a very fine project, a nice updating of a building, making it look very fresh and contemporary. The only small comment is that the retaining wall on the street, consider the potential for as a skateboard attraction. So some strategy towards skate stops or a rough brick on the top might be considered.
All right. Mr. Olson.
I also think it's a excellent project, and the changes from last time I think have improved it. I am in agreement that the board formed concrete in front is acceptable, and I think it's improved as it is a color. My only concern would be that, and I don't remember where the rooftop screens are, but it seems to me that they have more significance to this elevation than the drawings indicate. That concerns me a little bit. And that's all my comments.
Okay, let's see. My own comments are that I agree it's a nice improvement to this particular building. I think the landscape will be nice. I agree that any locations that you could expand open ground would be fantastic in the parking lot. Looking at the comment made last time had about the front retaining wall, trying to find a material perhaps that was more sympathetic to, not necessarily matching something that was in the neighborhood. It was more about trying to find a way, at least one moment in the project to make it a little bit more sympathetic to the majority of the more traditional structures around it. So yes, there may not be sandstone retaining walls adjacent to this, but it's one opportunity to help, at least at the street, blend this fairly contemporary design into this streetscape. So that's where I think where the comment was coming from. So I will leave it to the majority opinion of the board, whether the board form is the right choice. So it sounds like most everyone would be in favor of this being ready for project design approval. Bob, do you have a point?
Yeah, just regarding the board form concrete, I really don't have any objection to it, but I would like to point out that one block to the west, you'll find Cottage Hospital has a lot of cut sandstone walls, including one that has not yet been installed at the corner of Pueblo and Bath. So it's, you know, that's a pretty strong statement for sandstone. Again, we're a block away and this is a contemporary building. Maybe it really doesn't matter, but I don't think it's fair to say there is no reference to sandstone in the neighborhood.
Okay. Well, as I was saying, I think the board, it seems the sense of the board is that this is ready for project design approval. And perhaps we can sort these last details out as we move forward. So I would make a motion for an indefinite continuance back to the full board for project design approval with the following comments: that the board appreciates the quality of the design updates to this building and would like the designers to continue to look for additional landscaping opportunities with throughout the project, in particular within the parking field, to expand any planter to the greatest extent feasible, and that all exterior lighting shall be true downlights with no uplighting of landscaping, and that the colors and materials as presented are acceptable, and that the designers provide a site wall, a front site wall that is immaterial, more sympathetic to the neighborhood and the surrounding area. Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay.
And would like to discuss things. May I do that now?
Yes.
I concur with Chairman Moore that I think that the front retaining wall, even though I said it would be acceptable and change the color of board form concrete, I think that echoing back to sandstone would be a good idea.
Okay.
So I would suggest changing. Well, how do we do that? Do we want to limit them into sandstone, or say an alternate material other than board form concrete? Would that work, Kevin?
I would say that they should utilize a natural material with a color that's with a more natural color, that they can come back with a response to that. Okay. Any other thoughts? Discussion? Points to add from Bob or David?
No, not for me.
Okay.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. So we have to read the CEQA exemption, correct, Matthew?
That is correct. At PDA, you will need the CEQA exemption as well.
Okay, I will read that now. So the Architectural Board of Review finds that the project qualifies for an exemption from further environmental review under CEQA guidelines, section 15183, based on the city staff analysis and CEQA certificate of determination on file for this project. And we have to go through our point by, right?
Yeah, the project compatibility.
There we go. And the project compatibility criteria, the number 1, compliance with city charter and municipal code. Consistency with design guidelines. Does the project fully comply with all applicable city charter and municipal code requirements? Yes, as far as the board is aware. And the project design is consistent with the applicable design guidelines for the city. Yes, this is an existing structure with contemporary lines and a contemporary history, so it is appropriate as presented. Number 2, compatible with the architectural character of the city and the neighborhood. It is compatible as it was already a more modern design within the neighborhood, and this remodel improves on that design. And the quality of the landscape as proposed will help knit this project into the neighborhood. Number 3, the mass bulk and scale has not changed, so it is appropriate for its location. Number 4, if we could flip, there we go. As far as we are aware, it is not adjacent to any federal, state, or city landmarks or historic resources. Number 5, it does not change any established public vistas, as it is not changing in height or massing. Number 6, use of open space and landscaping. This project does provide, well, it's an existing structure, and the landscaping is being enhanced and improved through this process. Okay. So that's it. Can we read that motion back, please?
Yes. So the motion is to continue indefinitely with the following comments. The board appreciates the quality of the design updates to the building. Continue to look for additional landscaping opportunities throughout the project, particularly within the parking, and expand planners to the greatest extent feasible. All exterior lighting shall be true downlights. The colors and materials as presented are acceptable, but utilize a material with a more natural color. The designers should provide a front sight wall that is more sympathetic to the neighborhood and the surrounding area. And then you have the project compatibility analysis and the CEQA findings.
Okay, so let's go to I think it was the 4th point where we talk about the materials. Can you repeat?
Let's see. Utilize a material with a more natural color, and the designer should provide a front sight wall that is more sympathetic to the neighborhood and surrounding area.
Okay, so let's take the natural color. That was part of the site wall comment. So let's strike that portion and where we talk about the site wall, that the site wall shall be constructed out of a natural material and with a natural color.
Okay.
And then at the very beginning, it's indefinite continuance with project design approval.
Okay.
Is that right, Richard? You got everything?
Yeah, do we need to, yes, I will second that. And those revisions, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Let's do our roll call vote.
Okay. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Abstain.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we need to
Do we
take
need
a?
to, Kevin,
Oh.
do we need to announce 10-day appeal period?
Yes, we do. And there's a 10-day appeal period. Thank you. Can we take a 2-minute break? Is that all right with everybody?
Yes.
All right, thank you. reopen the ABR meeting and move on to item number 3, which is 37 West Calle Lorles. Matthew, you have an announcement you want to make now or after the description?
I can make it now. It's typically after the description, but that's fine now. Let me turn on my cam real quick so everyone can see me. I was intending to make this announcement at the beginning, but it's never too late. This project has switched architects. It is now being represented by DesignArc. I believe Mark Shields and Mark Kirkhart are both here to help with the presentation of this item. The agenda says Michael Holliday is the architect, and so that is an error, and that has since been changed.
Great. Okay, so this is 37 West Calle Lorles, and this is a proposal to remodel multiple facades of an existing non-residential complex. The project includes removal of windows, replacement of doors and windows, new awnings, and new paint. No change in floor area is proposed. No change in the number of parking spaces is proposed. Project design approval is requested, and this project requires compliance with the project compatibility analysis and the following guidelines: Upper State Street Guide design guidelines and the outdoor lighting design guidelines. And the project was last reviewed on April 6th of this year. If we could have the applicant on screen. There we go. Okay, welcome. If you could introduce yourself.
Mark Kirkhart, Principal.
Go ahead.
Mark Kirkhart, Principal DesignArc Architects. Next door neighbors to this project. Our office is exactly next door. And I'm just going to do a quick introduction, and then Thomas Hashbarger, the project architect, is going to take you through the balance of the presentation. I just want to kind of reiterate, this is basically a simple storefront replacement and window replacement on the existing facades that basically are on Calle Lorales and wrap around onto De La Vina. The project is, the bulk of this project is the interior tenant improvement for Dr. Doug Katzeff, ophthalmologist, and adjacent to that is Aguila Valley Optical as part of his operation. So those are the people that are going to be occupying the building. So Thomas, you want to take it from there? Are you here, Thomas?
Mr. Chair, just to let you know that I will be promoting Thomas to make sure that he gets in. So give me just one moment.
All right, we should be fine. Can you hear me?
Yep.
And Thomas, if I could just ask that you, I just sent you a webcam request. If you could turn on your webcam using the camera icon on your GoToWebinar control panel. There you go.
Okay, great. All right. So maybe we could just go to page 2 where the photos are, and we can put it in context, even though this was seen pretty recently. I think it's just the next page over.
Page 2.
Page 2.
Timmy, can you? There we go.
Great. So like Mark said, it's a bit of a facelift to 2 separate portions of one building. There's a new tenant taking the entire ground floor portion of that portion on the right-hand side, and which we'll refer to as the I Center. And then Goleta Valley Optical is taking the 2 spaces on the other side of that small kind of wedge-shaped court there. And all of these windows that are facing street side are being replaced, including the one doorway that you see there just to the right of the fire hydrant. In front of that court space as well. So what I thought we would do is just address the board's comments from last time in order. It might mean maybe skipping around a little bit between the photos and the elevations, but that way we'll be sure to not miss any. but maybe take the first comment I'm seeing is that was addressing the light fixtures, but we're just proposing that those get re-lamped in place with LED light fixtures. So no change is proposed for those existing 5 light fixtures that you can see there. If we go to the elevations, which is on page 10, the awning color, which you can see there on our material and colors board, we're proposing, we agree with the board's comments made last time that it could just be a little bit more traditional, and we're sticking with the tried and true kind of tealish gray green color for the awnings. There was a comment about removing the landscape planting throughout, and we agree with that as well, and are proposing that all of the existing in-ground landscaping be kept in place and augmented. I don't know if Sam Mavis is able to attend, but toward the end we can. Actually, let's just do that now. It's the very final sheet of the set, page 14. So again, there's just simple landscape planters flanking all of the entries that go into those spaces, and then it kind of follows the curve of the relatively new sidewalk there, where De La Vina bends into Calle Laureles. And you can see the plant list there. There's foxtail agaves, blue flax lilies, red cordyline, kind of augmenting some of the existing palm trees and other plantings that are on the street greenway. And then further, the only additional landscape would be in pots that are flanking the main entry that's kind of in that triangular notch between the two buildings. And so if we go to the exterior elevations on page 10, the comment was made about providing further enhancement to the main entry. So in the upper right-hand corner, where it says partial north elevation, that's essentially the primary entry to the eye center. And we've got a soldier course tile in the terracotta and gray tile laid in a soldier course underneath the door side lights. And the terracotta is a little bit of a nod, both not only to obviously to the roof, but to the brick that's pretty ubiquitous throughout just kind of a 2-block radius of this building. So we thought that would enhance the entry as well. And again, we're placing pots there too. Now, if we zoom out to the southwest elevation, which is the lower one, the window placement on De La Vina is not only addressing the board's comments to kind of avoid them having that extremely horizontal, more kind of residential proportion, and that's why we added the pair there. But they've been more tailored to the tenant. This is a medical office building, so there's a lot of activity happening down at ground level. There's the lobby area to the left on that elevation, kind of back of reception there in the middle, and then staffing, surgery scheduling room happening there on the right. So that's also driven some of the window proportions as well. There was also a comment made regarding, I believe there was a bronze color proposed for the glass too. And in consulting with J&L Glass here locally, they've got a clear glass that's very high performance, low E, dual glaze that we would propose. So this glass is essentially just going to be clear and not tinted bronze as was previously proposed. We can zoom out just a little bit to the elevation. Well, maybe just the whole speed come in context. There was you can see on the south elevation, upper left-hand corner, the board was making comments that they'd like to see some of the windows in that 4-foot kind of alleyway between the two buildings retained and enhanced. But those are optical exam rooms. It's impractical to have openings into those rooms in regards just to the sequence of patients through the building. So what we did is we kind of focused our efforts on the entry to the eye care center and then to the primary storefront of the Goleta Valley Optical, which is just opposite of the entry. So, you know, most of the focus of attention is in that little wedge-shaped court that's directly at the back of sidewalk. Let's see, what else did we have? The final comment the board made, and maybe we can go back to page 2, which is the photo sheet, was about potentially screening the mechanical equipment. Oh, there's Sam, great. We feel that the mechanical equipment being so stepped back from the street, any screening that we would add, you know, seems like that would just sort of be obtrusive in and of itself. And so what we propose, and we've done it successfully elsewhere, the Hotel Californian included, is to paint them terracotta color. It's been pretty successful on other projects, rather than add another screen, which would potentially block view to the second story beyond from those windows there. Rather than increase the height of the parapet or do anything like that, which would kind of add to the bulk of the building. If the board can consider just painting those or leaving them as is. There's no mechanical change to those units that's proposed by either of the tenants. I think that covers all the comments that the board made last time. Sam, I'm wondering if you could walk. Yeah, Mark.
Why don't you show them the details of the windows too, because we are those smaller windows, how we're setting them back and rolling the plaster into them.
Oh, right. Yeah, you're right. I think there also was a comment about making sure that the plaster rolled back into the window. So for the small fixed windows, and this is again on page 12, are the detail sheets. So the size of the storefront of all the tenants facing the street is very similar, but the fixed windows will be a smaller section so that we can get that plaster to roll into the small fixed windows on De La Vina Street. So we just wanted to acknowledge that comment that the board made last time to make sure the plaster rolls into those smaller windows. Those are all
let's take a present the landscape since he's here now.
So
yeah,
can
that'd be great.
Can everybody hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think you did a good job, Thomas. Thank you. I just wanted to kind of back up what you started with, and knowing that some of the pictures showed you just the way the Queen Palms layer this project in the Parkway. It's quite a strong statement of layering and buffering, but in the planters in the ground at the building level, we've got things like Dianella Casa Blue, we've got blue fescue, grasses and some agave, and potentially some Menegaxanthus to dress up the storefronts and not to block the windows, but to make it interesting along the street experience. And then if you go to the farther west building, on the corners, we've added some corduroy red star where we've tried to actually bring up some softening up the wall on those corners a little bit and frame that entry. And then we've continued that down the west side a little bit because I think that's, the south side of the sidewalk to try to break up some of that flatness. And we've put a Carissa Green Beauty as a base plant to kind of clean up and organize the transition from vertical to the planter horizontal, and some more Casa Blue, and also some Festuca Elijah Blue to kind of create a very soft texture and low foundation planting. We turn the corner on the southwest and create some more Cordyline Red Star to add some silhouette and some mass coming up the wall face a little bit. The planters are too narrow for any trees against the walkway that wouldn't create some kind of circulation conflict. But the existing palms we're keeping, there's a nice big queen palm on the further south building that is a statement vertically. So we're just trying to enhance the architecture with some soft new organizing foundation planting all the way along from top to bottom. So that's kind of the summary of where we were to carry it one step further. Thank you.
Okay, does that conclude your presentation?
Yeah, I think we're good unless Mark, you had anything to add.
I think that's good, Thomas.
Okay, great. So we will open public comment. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to address the board?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just as a reminder to please raise your hand using the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel, and I will call on you and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. I currently do not see anyone with their hands raised. I'll ask Matthew if we received any written comment and keep you posted if anybody else raises their hand.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, we did not receive any written public comment.
Okay, we'll give it a few more seconds. And then we'll go ahead and close public comment and go to questions. Richard, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay. Bob, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Leon, any questions?
No questions.
Okay. Dennis, questions?
No questions.
Okay, and then who else do we have? Mr. Black, any questions?
Oh, sorry.
Is that a no?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, then let's go. I think that's everybody. I don't have any questions, so let's go to comments. Richard, do you have comments?
Yeah, I have one comment and I brought it up last time about the
So
extreme.
before we get into that, let's have the applicants turn their cameras off and mute themselves, and let's get all the board members up on screen. Sorry, Richard, to interrupt.
No, that's fine. I mentioned last time about my concern about the exposed rooftop equipment, and again, looking at it, those 2 units are radically above the existing parapet, and I just don't think considering that this project will be considerable cost because of the improvements to the interior. And I don't think increasing the parapet wall would be outlandishly increase the scope of the work. So I'm not happy with just painting the units terracotta. I think that the parapet should be raised. That's my comments.
Okay, any comments regarding the changes to the design?
No, I support the design other than the parapet height. other than the exposed equipment. I think it's a good project and done nicely.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cunningham, comments?
I think this is a very nice project, nicely done. But I do agree with Board Member 6 regarding the rooftop equipment. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Olson?
In regards to the rooftop equipment, could we show the photograph of the two buildings, the first slide once again, so I could refresh myself about those?
It will help to zoom in on that top photograph on the right-hand side.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Six. That's all my comment.
Okay. Dennis?
No, very fine project. I think the applicants have responded very nicely to all the comments made.
Okay. David?
I have no other comments. Thank you. I would agree with what's been said.
Okay. My comments are, this seems to be a very straightforward remodel, and I don't think we should hold it up in any way. They should just move right through this process. Because they're not proposing to change the mechanical equipment on the roof or add to it at this point, I don't know that it's not within their scope of work. So we would be asking them just to do the right thing and fully screen that equipment, I think is the most we could ask for at this point. But I will let somebody make a motion. And we can continue that discussion.
Oh, Mr. Chair, I would make a motion for PDA and with a subsequent, well, okay. I'll make a motion for project. Before I do, I need to ask the, no, I don't. So I would make a motion for project design approval with the following comments that the architect, the applicant shall study ways to physically reduce the visibility of the rooftop mechanical equipment on the west building, and that the project would does meet the compatibility analysis as follows. We'll put that up, please. As far as we have been informed from the staff, that the project complies with the city charter and municipal code, that the project is consistent with the guidelines applicable to the location of this project. It is compatible with the architectural character of the city, given that it's reflecting the Spanish design. Number 3, it is appropriate in mass book and scale, as it is not increasing any of that. There's no changes to the mass book scale and height. Number 4, as far as the board is aware, there's no adjacent landmarks or historic resources that are influenced or influenced by this design, by this change in project. There are no public views of the ocean and mountains affected. And the use of open space and landscaping, in particular in the ground mounted landscape areas in front of the storefronts is appropriate.
Okay, I will second that. Motion, Richard, you left out, do you think this project could come back on the consent calendar for final approval? Or does it need to come back to the full board?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think it could come back in consent. Thank you.
Okay, I agree. So, is there any other discussion? No? Okay, so let's have a roll call vote.
All right, this is Mary. I will take the roll call vote. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Move on. Move on.
Thank you.
Great. Move on to item number 4, which is 2 South Quarantina Street, concept review. Proposal for a new non-residential structure and staging area. Project entails the demolition of all structures on site and construction of a new 3,151 square foot single-story industrial structure. The project also proposes 2 staging areas for equipment and vehicles, new trash enclosure, perimeter planters, and stormwater basin. 5 parking spaces are proposed. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. Project requires development plan approval findings of Planning Commission, as well as compliance with project compatibility analysis, the urban design guidelines, and the outdoor lighting design guidelines. Was last reviewed December 16th. Okay, welcome. If you could introduce yourself.
John Kuyken with Dudek, but I'm actually going to have Pablo with RJC do the presentation for the project. So if we can bring him on.
Mr. Chair, I have just made Pablo a presenter, and it looks like, yes, there he is.
Great. If you could introduce yourself and take us through the project.
Pablo Romero. I'm the lead designer from RJC Inc.
Okay, great.
Thanks for this project. Thank you.
Do we have comments, Matthew, from the last go round?
I believe we do. There they are.
Okay. Okay, applicant to study additional landscaping, adding large evergreen trees on the north and west property lines to screen it from the freeway, increase the width of the planter along Quarantina to accommodate larger trees, provide a well-articulated 6 to 8 foot combination of wall and or fencing around the perimeter of the site. Wall should be stucco or typical Santa Barbara details. Study addressing the building to the street. We will work the retention basin, provide substantial planting, including trees in all striped areas. The general massing of the proposed structure appears to be acceptable, but further study the exterior appearance is suggested. Rather have the facades be more compatible with standard Spanish industrial style, focus on simple construction, but with deep recessed openings, as appearance of bearing walls, or provide a design of more industrial character but with an elevated level of design. In reality, we exterior HVAC equipment away from property lines so it is not visible from the street. Is that everything? Or is there more?
There's one more at 9.
Okay, there. Applicant to study retaining the existing eucalyptus tree at the Quarantina Street entrance, study varying the sidewalk at that location to accommodate the street tree. Okay. There you go.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Chair. So we've taken all these comments into consideration, and we've come with a with a revised proposal. We've tried to address as much as we could accommodate. We've been working with a client in coming with a new plan, and also, as I mentioned, incorporating all of these comments. So I would like to first start by, I'm not going to go through the civil drawings, but initially we had a retaining area in the front, adjoining the building. We've moved away from that, and everything's moving to underground chambers, so that we can, actually utilize the landscape area as such without, mixing with any storm water. So all storm water will be managed on site, but will be managed underground under the concrete paving.
I would suggest that we go to the site plan and so we can see.
Actually, if we could go to sheet 5, if we could go to sheet 5 on the PDF file. Yeah, and zoom in a bit. So right there at the, at the south end of the property, that's where all of our retaining structures will be concentrated. We've designed all the grading to drain in that direction. We are providing details for the chambers, and basically that's pretty much what we're doing there in terms of stormwater. All's managed on site. Nothing, nothing's handled in any other fashion, but it's all handled underground to maximize the use of the space. This is basically a staging area, and we want to maximize the use of the land for their purposes, for the client's purposes. And if we can move to, I take it it's sheet 9. That's our new site plan. So we have basically, removed the use of that landscape, that planter area, that stripe of planter area along the frontage of the building to, from any use for stormwater management, and we've turned it more into just a landscape area, just to provide more of a interest to the streetscape. So on this one, I'll start by saying that part of the things that we've come with is move the building slightly towards the front of the property. We've pushed it, as I mentioned, towards Guarantina Street, and we've incorporated this planter. We've eliminated the fence line that we had along that parallel to the building. We've eliminated that one. We've relocated all the package HVAC units behind the fenced area, behind the screen, if you want, and the building becomes more of a more relevant to the streetscape. And we'll go into the elevations and renderings so to illustrate this a little bit more. But basically, this is the big change in terms of site plan. The second element is the treatment of the sidewalk itself and the perimeter fencing. Whereas we had a more transparent proposal before, we've gone into the use of a prefabricated concrete screen, which we will be treating with landscaping. We will address that shortly. Our landscape architect will be joining us also, and basically this is all done. And if we can switch to the next sheet, please. So our treatment for that entire sidewalk is, as I mentioned, that the use of that prefab material, but not as a straight line, but rather, and this would be a 6-foot high screen. But we will be playing with the alignment of that fence to create some niches and provide, we're always setting it back at least one foot from the sidewalk to provide planting area for the vines. But at certain intervals, we're providing a 2 feet planter to provide, a little bit of interest and playfulness to the way we address the sidewalk. So if we could zoom in on the upper two sections, upper right sections. So, well, of course, besides the parkway, which we're also addressing with multiple plans, as I mentioned, landscape will address this shortly. We are providing this treatment for the screen wall. So it's not yes, initially it's a prefab material, but we do want to provide a lot of green to it and have it participate in the in the urban landscape a little bit, with more interest. Okay, and the massing, if we can go now to sheet 10, please. That's sheet 10, I'm sorry, the following sheet 11. So this is the floor plan. We've made small changes to the floor plan, just minor adjustments. And the most important one is that we've, in order to create more interest to the, to the outside, we've shifted some of the windows. Basically, we've played a little bit more with the fenestration, again, to provide more interest to the street. We're still keeping the uses that we had previously. This is basically, we're basically consolidating the uses of the adjoining property. We're not adding any use that's not already in the adjoining property. We're solidifying the use of the restrooms that was already in our proposal before. We're also providing a lunch / break room. And that break room, again, we've shifted the window to open towards Quarantina instead of towards the side patio. Otherwise, we've kept the same, basically the same building. And that planter along that front, we're providing some, some interesting, basically low maintenance, but interesting material along it. Can we go to sheet 12, please? So these are the elevations, the raw elevations of the building without any planting. We wanted to provide you the naked structure. Later on, we'll see it how it interfaces with the landscape. But this is, and if we could zoom in the lower portion, that's the Quarantina elevation. So, as I mentioned, we're still pursuing an industrial building because in the end we're talking about an industrial neighborhood. We're not proposing nothing that goes against the image, the massing, and the materials and the treatment that's in the surrounding areas. But still, we're keeping simple lines yet attractive, and this is the the main facade of the building. HVAC equipment, as I mentioned, is not, or any coverings are visible from the street. Everything's behind the screen. If we could switch to the next sheet, please. Well, these are the rest of the elevations. These are more internal elevations for you to see. But if we could switch to the next one, that's where the perspective drawings are. So, that prefab screen will be interfacing with iron picket fences along the entry points to the property. We are maintaining the visibility triangles. So along those, we will be providing picket fence, as well as sliding gates will all be iron rod picket fence. And for materials, we are using basically CMU block for the base, and then metal siding with and also with metal roofing. So that's pretty much our proposal for the building. If we could see the following sheet, please. So this is more of the streetscape for Quarantina. So as of course, we are representing this on a 15 or 20 year growth, with a 15 to 20 year growth. But that's actually what we are pursuing with the vines that we're proposing, with the plants that we're proposing, and the street trees as well. And the building cannot be seen in a vacuum, definitely from the street point of view, because it will be interfacing. I wanted to bring it to your eyes, the building by itself, but in reality, this is more of the way that it's going to be, interacting with the street. We also took, went back to analyzing the way. One of the comments was to see how it would interface, or how it would be seen from the freeway. Can we change to the next sheet, please? And so we actually, if we can zoom in the lower left view, that's basically the view from the, we found it, really hard to be seen from the freeway, from the 101. But still, because this was one of the comments that we received, we wanted to do it at 65 miles per hour. You would only see it for 0.8 seconds or somewhere along those lines. But still, you would be mostly looking at the canopy of the trees from this vantage point. The building would not be visible. We don't expect this to be visible. And still, it's only visible on the southbound direction, not from the northbound direction. That's just not visible from that vantage point. So lastly, if we could go to sheet 4, please. I'm sorry, sheet 5. I'm sorry, sheet 5. So one of the comments. I'm so sorry. Sheet 8. It's sheet 8 that I'm looking for. We were asked also to explore that possibility about addressing this building as a Spanish Revival building. But we went back, although we had done some research and some walking in the neighborhood, we definitely went back and explored what was the imagery and the language, architectural language, that was being used in the surroundings. And from the buildings that were developed back decades ago to the one that was most recently built in the vicinity, which is the one on the upper right corner. That's 35 North Calle Cesar Chavez. The entire neighborhood is basically an industrial building, an industrial looking neighborhood. So we think that our proposal is in compliance and matching the surroundings as best as it can match it. So we just wanted to come back to this theme of the architectural style. And we see it that it's, you know, consistent with the massing, consistent with the treatment, with the materials, and with the imagery of the neighborhood. So that's it from the architectural standpoint. I would switch now to Chris. Is Chris in the meeting?
I have a Chris before who
Yes.
I have just upgraded to panelist. I do want to remind the applicant team that applicant presentations are meant to be 15 minutes. So I just want to remind you guys of that.
Okay.
I can be very brief. If we can go back to the landscape plan real quick.
That's the last sheet, please.
So the bulk of the landscaping predominantly is drought tolerant material, with the exception of a few moderates sprinkled in here and there. The goal is to basically screen the fence and make it an aesthetic, appealing frontage as best as possible. It is a tight space, admittedly, between the wall and the walk, but we feel that we can get some creeping fig vines, some trumpet vines in there, add a little color and quickly grow up the wall face and cover it. Those renderings did depict it probably like 25 year or so, but I think if we increase the spacing, we can play with the spacing to get adequate coverage. On the Parkway side, we're targeting mostly succulents, the agaves, aloes, red yucca. Most of them get about 3 foot height. We're not trying to overbear or make too tall of a species in that area. Lastly, we did try and put evergreen trees right up against the building. So that was to meet the building or meet the intent. Sorry, I'm trying to talk and get my webcam up at the same time. I don't know why it's not working. But that's pretty much it on my end. Available for questions as well.
This is John Kuykendall. One comment on that maybe you could speak to is there was a comment from the board about trying to preserve the eucalyptus tree on Quarantina Street. And I know that that's something that we felt we weren't able to achieve given the driveways and other things. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
I believe that
Go ahead.
may be able to attest to this better, but the visibility I think was an issue.
That's correct, and the accessibility as well was really challenging because of the height of the roots of the tree. That would have made it really, you know, an ADA challenge.
Okay, does that conclude your presentation?
It does.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we will open public comment. And if anybody from the public would like to address them, please raise your hand.
Hi, this is Matthew Ozomas. I'm taking over for Ellen, who had an appointment she had to go to. So if you'll see on the screen, members of the public who wish to speak are asked to raise their hand, which will be located where that red arrow is pointing to, right there and on your screen. So 3 members of, well, I have someone from Marburg, someone from RRM Design, someone from the public. I'm not seeing any hands raising, stalling a bit for those who have a hard time finding it. And it appears that we do not have anyone from the public who wishes to speak. And I have received any.
Okay. So then we will close public comment, move on to questions. Richard, do you have questions?
Would you explain the visibility issues at the gate? You know, it would, you know, the wrought iron gate visibly opens this yard to the street. but you're saying that there's visual pedestrian issues at the gates. Can you go into that? I know there's a triangle and so forth, but if the gates are solid and but when they're open, isn't that visibility, can't that visibility triangle be handled in another way?
The pedestrian access is completely independent from the vehicular access. So the visibility triangles are basically addressing the need for vehicles to incorporate into the street. But we don't have them interfacing at all. They're completely separated. I don't know if that was where you were headed.
I'm pushing for some light material to make the gates opaque. Is that a possibility with the visibility triangles that you need at those entry gates?
Well, this is John. Weren't the gates supposed to be open during operating hours? That was one of the criteria for their operation.
That's
And
correct.
that was addressing transportation, I thought. So does that make a difference or no?
I'm looking for when it's closed at night, could we have opaque gates?
I think that's something that we can that we can explore, definitely.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Okay, Mr. Olson, any questions?
Could you describe the materials of the prefab fence again for me?
It's concrete. The one that we're selecting has a stucco finish. Of course, it's not stucco, but it has a texture of the stucco. If you can go to, it's page 10. Yes, thank you. And can you zoom in on the lower central image? Thanks. Yeah.
So each of those is a panel in between the vertical pieces? That's one panel, or is it 6 pieces?
It's 6 pieces, yes. Well, actually, the one that we're using would be a little bit less than that. I think each one of these panels is 1 foot 6. So we're talking about a 6 foot tall screen. Each one of these panels has, as I mentioned, a stucco finish to it. It's integral color, and yes, the joints and also the finish are really helpful for any creeping vine to fully attach to it.
So it comes in a color. It comes colored.
That is
and
correct.
it won't need to be painted.
Correct.
No,
It's an
it
integral
will
color.
not need to be. Yes, integral color.
And what about graffiti? Does it have any potential for inhibiting graffiti?
It would be just similar to a CMU block wall where we would have to spray an anti-graffiti coat.
That's correct.
And would that be something you're planning to do?
We can definitely explore it. Yes.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay, Mr. Whalen, any questions?
Yes, thank you. Is my camera on?
No, it's not.
I'm clicking on it and nothing's happening.
We have reached our maximum. Oh, there we
Reached
go.
your limit. That's what I thought. Well, I may be coming to this project a little late, but I wasn't in attendance when it was first presented in December. And I never heard the question asked that I'm going to ask now. What was the rationale for locating the building on that portion of the site?
Yes. Thanks for the question. As I mentioned, most of the activity that we're consolidating in this building is happening in a temporary location in the adjoining property. Okay, right now, the company has set up porta potties, some coolers and ice chests and what have you and shades to provide a break area for their employees, basically on their way in to start the day, and or at the end of the day. So this is why we are pushing it towards the back of the property. That's basically the reason behind that.
And when you say adjoining parcel, you mean contiguous further south on Quarantina?
That's correct.
Thank you. That's my only question, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Mr. Cunningham. Questions?
I don't have access regarding with the webcam because the applicant is still on.
Give it a shot now.
I'll just ask my question. Here we go. Okay. I think the applicant addressed all of the points that we made during the first presentation, except for creating planters in the striped areas in the parking lot. I'd like to know why they decided not to do that.
Thanks. Yes. So the reason is, again, we got big equipment maneuvering here. They might be using the area for parking the trash trucks at some point. We're also bringing in and out storage containers and what have you. So we wanted to leave more of a, more of an open area for the entirety of the inside, and we concentrated all of our planting efforts towards the frontage of the property. That's the reason behind it.
Okay, following up, the planter to, let's say, south on the plan, between the building and the parking lot, it appears to have some bollards along the edge of it. Is that what those are? Those 5 black dots?
Yes, correct.
So that space would not be available for any equipment storage. It would simply be, I mean, the bollards are there for some reason, presumably. Why can't that area that's protected by the bollards be a planter? And then the other planter between the parking spaces and, let's say, Quarantina Street, the linear planter, not planter, striped area, is that an accessible path of travel?
Yes.
Okay, and what about the area between your cursor there and the driveway? What is that?
Similarly, it's an accessible path of travel to the trash enclosure.
No, it doesn't look like it is because it's between the trash enclosure and the driveway. Can you clarify that?
We have a pedestrian door. If you can zoom in on that one. So we have a pedestrian door on the side. Yes, and then the rest we have gate operators and what have you. So we just continue the striped area.
Okay, and your accessible path of travel between the enclosure and the building looks to be about 8 feet wide. Is that necessary? That much width?
That portion, yes, because of the van accessible parking stall there.
Okay.
It has to be 8 feet.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Mr. Whalen, oh, sorry, not Mr. Whalen, Mr. Black.
Can you switch back to the landscape plan, please? Two, four. Yeah, I thought so. So I noticed that on the site plan that we were just looking at, there are 9 street trees along Quarantina and 3 on Quientos. But those numbers don't match up to what I see on this plan. So you got 2, 4, 6 versus 9. It's funny because when I look,
we're anticipating the 9. Sorry, that was a mistake on the landscape part.
okay, good. Because when I looked at this plan, I thought, gee, there should be tighter spacing and more trees. So
we originally were laying the, sorry, we were originally laying out the trees to line up with the pop outs, but given the 9, it overrides that desire. Let's go with the 9.
Okay, good. And 3 on the Quientos side?
As long as the visibility triangles allow us, yes.
Okay. And these trees have been signed off by the city street tree advisory. This is a designated street tree, I assume?
We still need it. That's in progress.
Okay. But your intent is to just be consistent with the designated street tree, yes?
Correct.
Okay. That's all the questions I had.
Okay. Leon, did we get you? Got your
Yes.
questions?
Yes.
Okay. Great. My question is, so we're in the flood zone and it looks like you've designed the building to be raised, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What is that above the street level? How high up are you now with the ramping up? And is that incorporated into the elevation sheet as far as where street level is? Okay, there we go. You can see a little bit of the sidewalk.
Yeah, you can see it on the actually on the let me see here. That one, that's exactly, that one has the, it's matching the profile of the street. And
okay.
I'm handling 2 computers, but yes, our grade is 16.5. If we can go to sheet 3, that's where the sheet 3 of the PDF file, please. So the proposed building is at 16.5 over, 1426 at the sidewalk, 1416 at the sidewalk, roughly, playing around the 14.
So
11,
2.5.
Yes.
So say average of say 14 feet or so. So you're 2.5 feet above sidewalk for your finished floor.
Right.
Okay. All right. And then on your fencing material, the suggestion was made last time that it should be more of a wall. You selected this material for cost, feasibility, or constructability. What's the
cost and time as well?
Noise attenuation.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And the possibility of integral color also gave us, chips or what have you would be, and would be helpful to have it as an integral color material.
Okay. All right. Those are all my questions. Are there any other questions from board members? Nope. Okay. Let's go on to comments. So if we could have the applicants turn their screens off and mute themselves. We'll get all the board members up. All right. We have everybody? I guess we got everybody, yeah. Let's start with Leon. Let's hear your comments.
I only have one comment, and I would ask them to, it seems like this is so tempting for graffiti artists, and that I would ask them to do what they could do to prevent that.
So treat the wall in some way to.
Pardon?
So treat the wall in some way to.
Yes.
Prevent.
I think he had an idea.
Okay. Okay, anything else?
That's all.
Okay. Bob? Comments? Oh, we just lost you, Bob.
I'm not comfortable with the prefab wall. I think the wall, particularly with regard to the fact that it's being connected to a wrought iron gates, I just don't see that as being a good combination. I think the wall needs to be CMU with a smooth plaster finish, which can be treated with graffiti resistant paint. Oh, sorry, you couldn't see me. And also, I really feel pretty strongly about adding landscaping in the interior of the lot. In particular, that the one location that I pointed out that's protected by bollards. It seems like that's one spot where we could accommodate, a fairly good sized tree. With regard to proposed vines, I think the creeping fig always seems like a good idea until it gets so heavy that it pulls itself off the wall. So I would advise against using that plant. There are other options. But in any case, I think we need a smooth plaster wall. I just don't see this prefab material being anything that speaks of Santa Barbara. Yes, we're not going to get a Spanish style building, but I don't see why we could not have a wall that is Spanish style. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Richard.
Yes, I think the improvements that were made in regards to facing the building to the street and eliminating the retention basin and so forth there is very positive. I see by the graphics further looking at it that my question of having solid fencing at the gate is 10 feet beyond the gate is not possible. So I guess we'll have to live with a transparent gate and the wings there because of the visual issues. If we go to, well, in regards to Bob's comment on the solid fence, I think that I think the material selected is okay. It would be nice to have a solid CMU, but I think that the location and the nature of this project that the fence material selected is okay, especially when you look at the details of the fence, that the footings are typical column footings right there on the very left-hand corner there. You can see the image of how they do the footings that would eliminate or give opportunity for the plantings to take over or have a good root area. And then the only thing I would say, and if we go to sheet A3.2. Yeah, on the very right-hand bottom corner, I would think that I studied the bottom, yeah, there you go. I studied the adjacent properties, and I think it would be best to have this solid wall continue to the back face of the building rather than stop short with the chain link fence to give better screening and, of the yard from the oblique angle of the street. And I concur with Bob's comment that in that area where the bollards are in the striped area just to the left-hand side of the entry to the building, that could afford a tree and a planter and a significant skyline tree. Those are my comments.
Okay, Dennis?
Well, I'm gonna start off with a left field comment and then build back to that. I think it's unfortunate that the building wasn't located on the corner of 500 and Quarantina to relate to the other two buildings that are immediately across it and give some identity to the neighborhood. And I think your selection of buildings was highly selective in the neighborhood because the Marburg building right across the street on 500 is very residential, if anything. So I don't think that there's a hard, fast defense that you can make about this being strictly industrial neighborhood. In fact, there is a chance to change that right here at this project as one transitions under the freeway. But be that as it may, that ship has already sailed, right? So this project seems to me to be less about the building and more about the fence. And the proposed precast concrete fence to me, especially in the perspective views, is almost unyielding and in any sense does not add a lot to the neighborhood. So to that end, I would suggest that if you could go to that, back to that detail of the fence construction, I believe it was in the lower left corner, I see that there is an alternative to horizontal placement to vertical placement. Now, due to the length of this fence, this immense length down there, the horizontal line really emphasizes the length of the fence. I propose that if they were vertical, that it would break that up. Additionally, I would vary the depth of the, what should we call them, interstices or the reveals to create bigger planting areas. And even more so, some different arrangement at that corner that would relate to the larger urban character rather than just cutting it off at 45, creating a large planting area for maybe a feature tree or some other element. But that 45-degree on the fence arrangement really seems to turn its back on the neighborhood, where that very special point in the neighborhood should be featured. I think that's about all I have.
Okay. And I think David, or
yeah,
you're.
I just, in my mind, I'm not as concerned about the fence material as it's being proposed, because if in fact they end up as being proposed, you know, with a creeping vine of some sort, whether it's ficus or Virginia creeper, what have you, ultimately, if that is successful, it's not going to really matter what the fence looks like because it's going to be completely covered. So you could have a solid block wall or this wall or anything, and it's just going to be a green wall ultimately. So I'm not as concerned about it. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, that was my thought as well, is if ultimately the goal is to disguise and camouflage this wall, then, you know, it may take some time, but material ultimately may not matter. And the upkeep of plaster versus this cement style wall is probably a lot easier with vines on it.
Yeah, and I might add too, ultimately, once the vines have grown in, you're not going to have an issue with, I suspect, with graffiti. So,
right. Obviously, I think we would want to. I don't recall seeing a irrigation plan, but I think that would be something that we would want to try and require so that the vines are sustained over the lifetime of this project. My own comments are that, you know, it's the fencing material. It's a little unfortunate. You know, it would be great to have some plaster, at least portions of it be plaster, or something more interesting, maybe gateways, the entryways, something to show a significance that these are the entry points, and particularly the pedestrian entry. So just to at least give something back to the streetscape. Could we go to the overall elevations? I don't know what sheet that is, but I think that one, yeah. So if we zoom in on the top left, there's sort of a very sort of minimal attempt to do something at the pedestrian entry point. And it seems like at the very least, let's, do something special there that draws the eye and creates, shows some attention to the detail there. And the design of the metal building is very, it is very utilitarian and I guess appropriate for the location. So they are here for, let's see.
Mr. Chair.
Concept, yes.
I would like to add.
Go ahead, Matthew. 1 second, Leon. Matthew has something to say.
Just really quickly, I apologize, Mr. Olson. This project still needs review by the Planning Commission. It does need a coastal development permit and development plan approval findings. So it is here for comments before going to Planning Commission. Of course, if the board feels that there's still some work in the design that needs to be sort of massaged, then it can come back for another concept review. But it's strict. Just wanted to let you know that it does need to go to PC.
Okay, thank you. Leon, go ahead.
I would just like to say that the idea that what they're going to do is build a green wall of the size and length of this wall takes a lot of optimism. Perhaps eventually it might be there, but that requires years of growth, maintenance, and watering. And I think that I still hold on my idea here that graffiti. This is a place for graffiti, and there needs to be thoughts about how to minimize that. That's all.
Okay. Well,
Mr. Chair?
We need a motion, yes.
Would it be, I'm thinking that if we're relying on, if we settle in and agree on this material of wall, would it be better to have it in a darker color, maybe even a green color that would And along with Leon's anti-graffiti material, would that be a good direction to take this?
I don't know, in my opinion, the color is sort of the best thing going for the wall at this point. It's sort of a neutral, goes away kind of a color. What do the rest of the board members think?
I would agree.
I'd agree. But the reference to the green wall was, I think, was Mr. Black's reference that what we're really doing here is it's a landscape green wall, not a paint color.
I understand, but I was adding that the painting it green as the foliage takes it over would be better, but.
Yes, I agree.
You agree that it should be green?
Well, green or a dark color?
Yeah, a dark color.
I would
We're looking
suggest
at the options here.
I would suggest a second tone for the insets to further my idea about breaking up the length of the wall.
I like that idea.
Sure.
Okay, well, somebody, I guess maybe we could take a quick poll about the board's feeling about whether this is ready to go on to the planning commission for their review, or if we would like to see it one more time. So
I'd like to add something regarding the wall. Sorry to complicate things, but I really don't like the idea of painting the wall a darker color, especially not green. I suggest maybe the applicant consider using a green screen material to accommodate vine plantings maybe instead of the wall. If sound attenuation is an issue, then something like that could be put in front of the wall. A green wall, I can't live with that.
okay, well, I guess I'm getting the sense that the board is not quite satisfied, so probably not ready to give full positive comments for the project. So we may want to see this another time.
I think we have to give a more solid direction to the applicant on this wall. And just a second side, I would want the applicant to promise that we get a mid-site skyline in the striped area behind the bollards before they go to planning commission.
Okay, well, why don't we take a crack at a motion then? Somebody want to do that?
So I would make a motion for indefinite continuation to planning commission with the following comments: that the site plan, given the functionality demanded of the program, is satisfactory. That the style of the building, given the eclectic nature of the neighborhood, is acceptable. That the applicant is to provide a skyline tree in the striped area behind the bollards at the what is that, southwest corner of the building. that the applicant shall extend the solid wall on the south property line to the backside corner aligned with, extend the solid wall along the south property line to align with the backside, the, what is that, the west side of the building. And to add to your comments, Kevin, that the applicant should find a more decorative wrought iron fencing idea, at least at the pedestrian gated entry and perhaps at the fixed portions of the gate sidewalls or side fences. That would be my comments. That would be my motion.
A second.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. We would also need the preliminary comments of the project's compliance with the project compatibility analysis.
All right. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, and I want to add to my comment that the color of the wall should be the, we had a colored chip up there. I think it was the dark. Can we get the color chip up? The color, Timmy? Yeah, the dark terracotta as opposed to the bluff would be the color of the fence. And then the project preliminarily appears to have it compatible with the compatibility analysis with the following. Number one, as far as the board is aware and hearing nothing different from staff, finds the project compatible with the city charter and municipal code, that the project's design is consistent with the design guidelines of this particular location. It's compatible with the architectural character of the city and especially the neighborhood, given the eclectic architectural character, including other similar industrial buildings. 3, it is appropriate in size, mass, bulk, and scale, given its one-story nature. It, as far as the board is aware, there is no adjacent landmarks or historic resources affected. 5, there are no public views of the ocean or mountains that are affected. And with the addition of an internal skyline tree, that the open space and landscaping is acceptable given the extreme unique use of the property.
Okay. So is there any more discussion?
Just that one last note that I made about the number of street trees. Want to be consistent with the site plan.
Yes, I'll accept that.
Thank you.
Okay, so how do we state that the number of street trees shall match at a minimum as presented on the site plan?
Yes.
As opposed to the landscape plan.
Okay. All right. Any more thoughts? No more discussion? All right. So we have our first and our second. Let's do a roll call vote.
All right, this is Mary. I'll take roll call. Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much to the applicants. And as announced previously, item 5 has been postponed, correct, Matthew?
That is correct. So we have, this would be the end of the agenda. So if you'd like to close out, Mr. Chair, and I would like to thank you all for being here today.
Okay, thank you. And that will conclude our meeting. We'll close the Architecture Board of Review meeting for June 1st. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.